unfortunately, for many of us.
Yes.
I don't understand on an intellectual basis why some people think they should be parents, why they choose to make children, or they make them without any regard to the, all right, great, you had sex and you guys got pregnant. Good for you. That proves your sex organs work. Congratulations. But what about the rest of all the responsibilities to go along with that? My parents got engaged as teenagers. They were married when he was 18 and she was 19, and they immediately tried having children, and they couldn't conceive for 4 years. I believe my mother had some reproductive issues, and my father's sexual leitmotif was child molesting. So, actually having regular old sex, penis and vagina stuff didn't interest him all that much. But I was conceived, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be alive, and I'm grateful to be here sitting with you and our friends who are watching and listening. But it was a horror. My childhood was a horror.
Yeah, Jeff, having you on the show today and going into this very sensitive topic is extremely important to me, because there are children that are out there going through these experiences right as we're talking about it right now. And my concern is that sometimes they don't have someone they can look to that has gone through a similar scenario, that they can do a comparative to, that there is an out, that there is an ending to the type of suffering. And that's
and that they have to acknowledge, be aware of, accept that what is happening to them is not normal. It is not healthy, because much of the time, the people who do these kinds of things to children gaslight you. I can clearly remember my father torturing me, and while he was doing it, telling me that if I told anybody else what was going on, they would all stop loving me and stop liking me, and that no one would believe me because he would tell them that I was a big liar.
So that was part of the grooming process.
It was emotional blackmail not to out him for who he was. And then the even bigger trauma later was finding out that my mother kind of sort of knew, but it would have upset her apple cart to do anything to protect me.
How did you deal with that with your mother? How did you approach her with that once you suspected that she had knowledge of the abuse going on?
I was one of those people who buried the memories.
Okay.
I remembered some of it as a child. I remembered the fear very well. Yes. I remembered some of the torture. But one evening I was out, and friends, if this happens to you, this is a thing. I was already an adult, past 30, and out to dinner and a movie with a couple of friends. And we were watching Frequency, a film about a father and son in Brooklyn connecting through the ether between modern times and 1969. All right. Jeff was born in Brooklyn. 1969 was when things got really, really awful for me.
Yes.
In the middle of the movie, the tears just started to flow. And I didn't know why I was crying. And all of a sudden, all of it came back to me.
Wow.
And I had to get help for it. And the next time I saw my mother after that was at a funeral, a family funeral. And I decided to tell her. And she got hysterical and blamed and screamed, and this isn't so. And then the next day she told me that when she and my father had been engaged, he'd worked at a YMHA, which is like a YMCA for Jewish people. And he'd been fired for molesting a child.
Wow.
So, mother dear, you've known all along he was a child molester, and you chose to marry him, make children with him, and look the other way.
Wow. That's intense. That's intense.
So It's more layers of the very thing parents are supposed to do: protect your child, help your child to become a good, well-functioning adult out in the world, out in society. My parents not only failed miserably at it, they practically did everything they could to make sure that never happened.
Yeah.
And then the icing on the cake, or however you'd like to, whatever silly sentence I'd like to say about it, when they figured out that I was also gay, they couldn't handle that. The shame I was bringing on them. What are people going to think about them because of my,
Deflection.
yeah.
Yeah.
That my
Denial.
only, it seems my function in their lives was to prove that my father was straight, because I don't believe he was. And she wanted a baby because everybody else get babies. What she wanted hers.
Yes.
But beyond the baby time, beyond being a small child, they didn't have a clue how to raise a kid.
Did your father ever recognize that he had mental illness? Did he ever seek help for it? Did he ever go, wow, what I've done is wrong. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to get treatment. I'm going to fix my problem. I'm going to stop doing this, and I'm going to make amends, first with myself, second with my victim being you, and third, moving on, trying to generate a better life. Did he ever do any of those things, or did he just maintain?
He maintained
the evil.
The evil. Well, yeah, I'm glad you used that word.
It is that word.
Because, though, again, friends out there, I'm talking to you. People who do this are evil. Now, there is mental illness involved here, and mental illness, if you got that, you can't help having it, but there is help for it.
Absolutely.
There are medications for it. And the people who refuse to get the help are evil.
Yes, I agree.
My father tried to seduce me. I was about 20 or 21, the very last time he tried it. And he'd come to my apartment in Manhattan for lunch. I invited him to lunch. Hey, it's your old man. Come over for lunch.
Of course.
And he came over, and I remember this so clearly. Do you have any of those like all male magazines to look at? Let's look at some of those all male magazines together. And I was setting the table, and I had a big wad of napkins in my hand. And I purposely dropped them on the floor because I needed a second. Like, this is the moment, Jeff. This is the moment this ends. How do you handle it? Only it was much, much faster.
Of course.
And I picked up the napkins, and I turned to him and I said, if you want to look at gay pornography, this is in the 1970s. On every corner, there's a newsstand selling it. Because in those days, newsstands could sell adult magazines.
Yes.
Go out and get yourself a magazine and have lots of fun. But you and I are never, never, ever, ever, never going to engage that way again, or to have this discussion again. And why don't you leave?
I like that you stood up to it. You addressed it. You accepted the fact that he was still in that state of being. And you were aggressive in that regard. And that's exactly how you have to combat or fight something like that.
Part of his evilness was he would invent drama so that he had a reason or a motivation for taking his drugs. Look at, I was a bad boy. I can't handle it. I have to get stoned. I don't just mean with marijuana. I mean with all kinds of stuff. So everything he did was to feed into his disease. So rather than fight the disease, he built support systems for his disease. And my mother just lived with it. And I believe after a while enjoyed it. They learned to have this very sick,
That's
push
crazy.
me, pull you. Yeah. Well, hello.
Yeah.
My mother is mentally ill now. I sat her down about a dozen years ago and said to her, you are toxic to me. You need help. You need to see a psychiatrist. You need to get on medications, and you need to unravel why you married this monster, accept the fact that I'm gay for once and for all, and stop
Yes.
blaming me.
Yes.
Because according to her, my father was the way he was because of me. And if
Wow.
I hadn't been born, if I wasn't gay, if I didn't ever give them a reason to have the teeniest bump on the road, then he would have been just fine. It's all my fault.
Yeah. Atypical reverse guilt syndrome is exactly what that is. But a lot of that is stemmed on deniability too. They become prone to denying that they had an active participating involvement in that, even though it wasn't the physiological aspect of it. And that's very important for the audience to understand when you're looking at a secondary support system through a trauma that you're going through, especially in early years of life like that, and you don't have that secondary support system, whether it's complementing and backing up that which is causing the conflict in your life at that time, that's pretty debilitating. And there's no really place or avenue for someone young being traumatized in that moment to understand where to go with that.
And then unfortunately for them, not for me, for them,
Yes.
forgive me if I'm sounding a little egotistical. I'm just telling you facts.
Yes, of course.
I was born prematurely because my mother got toxemia, and they pulled me out of her just to save her life. But I lived. I was born good looking, and they resented it. My IQ is 163. That puts me in
Wow.
the genius category.
Yes, it does.
And they resented it. Whether you believe in God or DNA or the universe, whatever your belief system is, I was also born with a lot of talent. You know, I'm 51 years in show business now, and
Wow.
it's because I can. And my parents hated the attention I got. They hated, even when I was a little boy. It took like as if I was grabbing their spotlight and taking it away from them.
Yeah. That makes sense to me. I can
that
see
narcissistic, it's all about me and how
Yeah.
dare you. I mean, I'm an Emmy winner. I'm a Grammy nominee, and they resented it. I've written best-selling books. They never read them. I wrote a cookbook, the Family Affair cookbook, based on the old TV series. She finally read that, my mother did, only to call me and tell me that I had one word wrong in the book.
Wow. Deniability of your gifts. And you know, that's a shame, because they should have complimented the gifts because they helped create it. For God's sakes. I mean, no matter what you went through when you're in your childhood years, every single thing becomes an action of wisdom based on surviving trials and tribulations like that.
Well,
and that wisdom.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thankfully, there's something inside of me that's a survivor. Perhaps because
Obviously.
I almost died at birth. Maybe that's the moment where my consciousness decided I'm surviving this, because according to the doctors, I shouldn't have lived, and I shouldn't have thrived, and I shouldn't have grown. But I did.
And here we are today. Amazing.
And there are symptoms one can look for. For instance, a lot of abused children don't eat. I weighed 32 pounds when I was a year old. So I was a chubby little baby. At six, I weighed 36. In 5 years, I gained 4 pounds.
Wow.
That should have been a signal to everybody around me that something was really wrong.
Yeah.
But nobody saw it. And there were people who loved me. I had wonderful maternal grandparents who adored me.
Yes.
But they were the grandparents, and you don't interfere.
Yeah.
As adult, when I grew up, they were there for me. I've been very lucky. Since I was thrown out of my house at 15, I have had secondary supports. And both.
Did you seek them out, or did people come forth and offer the support? How did that work for you?
People came forth.
Beautiful. That's
They saw
wonderful.
it. They saw the talent. They saw the intellect, and they smelled what might have been going on in my life.
Interesting.
And a lot of them distanced themselves from my. In fact, everybody pretty much who helped me distanced themselves from my parents and were angry at my parents. They didn't know the details, but they saw the outcome.
Yes, exactly. They didn't
And
need
they,
to know the
and they
details.
went, we don't need to know the details, but you've been abused and we're going to help you. And I've had incredible, I mean, Lucille Ball and Milton Berle and Steve Allen and people like that helped me. So I've had
Interesting.
incredible mentors. And I had my maternal grandparents, my parents' best and only friends kind of adopted me into their family. So I had adopted brothers and adopted parents who did their best. I was already grown up. There's not much they could have done except to listen and to tell me what did they see. And they told me, we knew you were gay when you were 2 years old. Why should we care now that you're gay? We knew back
Exactly.
then. We love you just the same. There's no problem. And they really pushed my parents away.
Hey, I got to ask you this, Jeff. At what point did you decide to come out with what you had experienced and start bringing it into a public platform to help other people understand it, to help other people know that there is light at the end of that tunnel of abuse?
That's a good question. When I got clean and sober, at the age of 30.
Okay.
My pain, what I'd lived through, what I didn't remember was eating away at my soul. And I drowned it in alcohol and various drugs. And
Sure.
the irony that I co-host a show that you know about called Still Toking, when I am one of the founders.
Great show, folks.
It is a wonderful show, and I am proud to be the co-host.
Yeah, it's excellent. I enjoy being on your show.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun having you on.
Yeah, thank you.
But I'm also one of the founders of Marijuana Anonymous because marijuana was my drug of choice. And, for 90% of the people out there, there are good uses for marijuana. But for the 10% of us who become addicts, who have that in our DNA, it is no better for us than any other drug.
I can't disagree with that. As a PTSD patient, I was put on medical marijuana through the Veterans Administration, about 20 years ago. And, I never abuse it. I never use it in the daytime. The only time that I smoke a little bit of marijuana is just before I go to bed. It complements the PTSD drugs that I take to keep that jungle and what I survived out of my head at night so I can get sleep. So I do see a real medical benefit with the use of marijuana. But I'm also a child that grew up in the 60s. We were all smoking pot by the time we were 12. And so I've gone through the abusive years with it too. But I'm really glad you brought that subject up, because for people that are dealing with traumatic circumstances and don't want to end the day in that form of depression, marijuana has helped me deal with my own internal struggles with being a POW survivor and going through what I went through to make it to the next day. And it's all day by day. And like you, with these traumas that start and happen all the way from your early childhood years, do you take it in that effect? Do you use it for that purpose, or do you use it recreationally still?
I don't use it at all anymore myself. I can't.
Oh, good for you.
Because I'm an addict.
Yeah.
Addicted to one, addicted to all. So I don't take any recreational drugs. I have not had a recreational drug or a drink in 35. April 1st will be 36 years.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
But to answer your question, you asked, when did I start reaching out? When I got clean and sober. And I got clean and sober with the help of 12-step rooms. And I learned how to be brutally honest and share from my heart things in my life. Once I was clean and sober for a couple, 2 or 3 years, I began to be asked to speak on panels. And I began to go into prisons, jails,
interesting,
mental health hospitals, and speak to people who were in crisis,
Yes.
and let them know, like you said, that hearing about my background, hearing what I've lived through,
Yes.
and I've come out the other side was helpful. There's a wonderful sentence that's helped me a lot. And it's a decision. And I've had to make this decision several times in my life. The day I got sober, I mean, I can tell you 2 minutes what happened. I met a lower companion who I'd never done mushrooms. And he said, "You love marijuana, you gotta do mushrooms."
Been there, done that.
It's marijuana plus, is what I was told. So I went to my drug dealer in Hollywood, who I found by going to a porn theater. This guy was selling candy at a porn theater. Stop laughing out there. Yes, there was a candy counter in a porn theater. I don't know why it was there, but it was there.
That's crazy.
Yeah, right. And I just looked at him and I said, "Do you sell drugs?" And he looked at me and said, "What do you need?" We could smell it on each other. We could smell it on each other, right?
Yeah.
Went to him, got the mushrooms, went to my house. The guy was there, the lower companion.
Yeah.
He said, you boil them into tea, you drink the tea, you eat the mushrooms.
Yeah.
If you say so. Made the tea, drank it. But before I could eat the mushrooms, I heard a voice. You got to just take this on faith. Don't eat the mushrooms. You're going to lose your mind. So I demurred. I said, "You know what? This is my first time. I'll just drink the tea. Have fun." The man lost his mind and jumped off my balcony.
Wow.
Now, he lived. He also destroyed my apartment. He lived. But it was like a fire on my wall, writing me, "You're next." And I had to decide, do I want to live or do I want to die?
A sublime warning. Yes. I believe in those.
And I decided to live. Okay, what do I do? Well, the only two places I could think of were Jewish Family Services, being Jewish, and the Gay and Lesbian Community Center, because I'm gay. And I was too ashamed to go to the Jews, so I went to the gays.
Okay.
And they helped me get an intake with a drug counselor who sent me to my first meeting. And almost 36 years later, here we are.
Congratulations.
But several times in my life, I've had to make that decision.
Yeah.
I've had health issues that were very serious. And I had to decide, Jeff, going to live, you're going to die. When my partner died 6 years ago, I had to make that, are you going to fold up your tents now or are you going to live?
Yes.
I have so far, I don't know if you can hear that, knock on wood.
I heard it.
I have always chosen survival. During COVID, there was a year and a half, 18 months, I had no human contact. I have bad lungs. That's why I live in the desert. COVID would have wiped me out. No human contact. What do? I want to live. And I built a structure here to keep my sanity and to keep me safe. And it worked.
Positive mental attitude, brother. That's what gets us through those crisis times. I hear it completely, and I respect that. Sometimes we have to do an extreme action to survive any other further action. During the COVID crisis, as a hospice chaplain, which I've been now for 26 years, I experienced 3 personal friendships that died from COVID, and I was up there with them when they were pulling the plugs on them, all 3 of them. It was horrific.
One of my closest friends in the world, a more than 25-year friendship, happened to be with Dawn Wells, who was Marianne on Gilligan's Island.
Oh, wow.
I mean, we were very close friends.
Wow.
Dawn died from COVID. And it was horrific, not only that she died, but she got better. We got the word that, oh, her fever has broken. It looks like she's going to beat this thing.
Yeah.
An hour later, she was dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
I had a similar experience with one of my friends that went the same thing. We thought he was coming out of it, and he was dead within 24 hours. And it was just so tragic because the shell breaks down. You're accepting that they're going to heal and you're going to recover and everything's going to be okay. And then all of a sudden that bubble is burst. So
one wonders, did they give up? Were they just too spiritually tired to push forward? Peter Marshall, the original master of the Hollywood Squares, also a very, very close friend of mine. And he literally was this close to kicking the bucket. But there was something in him that kicked in, and he survived it and lived for like 3 or 4 more years. He passed away last year, but he was 98, 97, 98. So a good long life by a man who was a survivor.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of survivor and getting back to our topic today, what advice do you have out there for children, specifically children that are in a extremely defenseless scenario that you were in at one time in your life? What advice do you have for them, Jeff? What can we say to them? You're a survivor. You're a survivor.
Okay, when you say children, that's from 2 to what age? Give me an age range here, because I'd have different advice for different ages.
Well, that's a good question, and I wasn't prepared for that. My feeling would be minors that are under the age of 18 on down. So that's a pretty big range, because I imagine the sexual attacks and involvements are different according to segmented age periods of childhood, the childhood era.
All right. So those of you who are watching and listening, or those of you who help people, so I'll
yes,
put my net out bigger. If you're at puberty up to the age of 18, if you are being sexually molested, if you are being physically tortured, if you are not being given food or clothing, if something is wrong, you can call Child Protective Services in your community. They will listen. They will believe you.
Yes.
And they will come help you. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, tell your school guidance counselor, tell your school principal.
Excellent. I like that.
They will help you. And I'm telling you that so in high school, the school nurse figured out there was something terribly wrong in my home. And she's gone now, so I can't get her in trouble. Against the law, arranged for me to go to counseling without my parents knowing about it.
Wow.
And paid for it.
What a hero.
And paid for me to get there and back to school.
What a hero.
And those people wanted to take me out of my home. And that's when I got frightened. I should have allowed it, but I got frightened because I was responsible for my parents. That was another game. I was responsible for them. They weren't responsible for me.
Yeah, I caught that. Interesting.
And I told the psychologist they sent me to, by the way, I'm here without my parents' permission and I'm underaged. And this is not going to happen because I will throw you in jail. That's what I had to do to protect my parents. Right? Instead of protecting myself. But the help was there. I was the idiot who turned it down.
You were a child. You weren't an idiot. You were in unknown waters, so to speak. A lot of decision making had to be accomplished in that moment for you in your life.
And interestingly, not long after that, I was thrown out. I was very lucky at 50. I'm the luckiest human being walking the planet. I was pushed ahead in school 3 years because I was so smart. Which my parents, they loved bragging about it until people gave me attention, then they hated it.
Yes.
I don't recommend pushing a child ahead in school. There are other ways to stimulate the brain, because what you lose are years of socializing and social growth.
Yes.
So now it's not an even playing field with you and the people you're going to school with, because they're so much older than you are.
Yeah, that makes sense. Nothing but sense. I get it.
But I met the love of my life my first day of high school, which in those days was 10th grade, was the first grade of high school.
Yeah.
I was enrolled in a musical theater class. Praise God for that. And I met him. It was the last period of the day. I was 13, about to be 14. He was 17, a few months away from being 18. And I will tell you, our souls met instantaneously. And one minute I was a kid feeling unloved, and the next minute I was an adult in love with somebody. And for reasons that are too long to go into, other than internalized homophobia on his part and his parents, who treated him like my parents did, he could not deal with coming out and letting people know who he was. So he married wealthy women and produced my stepchildren. But we were together for 47 years.
Wow. That's amazing.
His name was Joel Kabik. He was an actor and did very well on the radio on the East Coast. He was a morning DJ for many, many years. And he was really, I used to listen to him through the computer.
Wow.
Brilliant at what he did. And what a gift.
I'd like to say, Jeff, I'm sorry for your loss.
Oh,
I am.
Thank you. Thank you.
I
and if you guys out there believe in prayer, our daughter needs your prayers. She's going through a very hard time right now with someone who was a perpetrator. She's 43 and she ended up with a guy who beat her up, and she's in trouble. So keep Julia in your thoughts.
Audience, please lift up a prayer for Julia.
Please, I would
please do that.
Personal favor to me. I'd really love that.
Absolutely, Jeff. Hey, I got to tell you, this is an amazing journey, because I look at you now. You're a very stabilized person. You're grounded with regard to your directions. You have no shame or fear or deniability within your conversation at all. You're reaching out to my world right now, and you're telling my world this is what you can do in a case like that. And you're the prime example of a crisis victory survivor, because you're so motivated to humanity by the experiences that you survived. And that's exactly what I wanted out of this show today, Jeff. I want people to see that
another story, which
yes, please,
pulls into everything you're saying. About 15 years ago, I made a mistake. I interacted with the wrong person.
Okay.
Wrong person tried to rape me. I beat him to a pulp, and I said, no more.
Yes.
I wasn't even afraid. I was angry.
And done being a victim.
Done being a victim.
Yeah, done.
Am I allowed to use language on this show?
Absolutely.
Motherfucker, who do you really think you're going to do this to me? No, this is not happening, as he's lying on the floor, beaten and bleeding. Yeah. Now, I'll take some pity on you and not call the police, but remove thy ass from my life. No,
Did you hear that, audience? That's how you deal with it. When it comes at you again, when you're stronger in life, you've already survived what you've gone through. Someone makes a play to try to suck you down that hole again. Stand up no matter what. Stand up, even if you've got to take the blows yourself. Don't ever become a victim again.
Because bullies, listen to my words, people. Bullies are the weakest people on the planet.
Of course they are. Absolutely.
And if you stand up to them, they fold up and die. I don't mean their lives die, but the bravado and all of the damage and all of the evil just shrivels up because you stood up to them. They're not prepared for that. They're brilliant at gaslighting you, at making you think they have some sort of control. No. Also, no.
I love it. Jeff, the biggest thing I took out of this today was to tell these young people, which you did, there are other avenues where you can seek help. You can get counsel. You can get advice. A school counselor. That was perfect. I really like that. because your friends and people that even your teachers, they'll start noticing something different about you compared to other children coming into the classroom, or how other children are less open and become less aware of the environment because they're so focused on what they have to survive from day to day.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
really thank you for bringing that out. That was just exactly what I wanted to hear on this show.
Are we done, or can I tell some more stories?
Oh, we're still going. Go ahead,
Okay.
brother.
Well, school counselor. About a year after Joel and I started being a couple,
Mhm.
peer pressure hit him hard. Why are you with that faggot? You know, the kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And he ghosted me for a while, which threw me into a tizzy,
Sure.
a bad tizzy, a very bad tizzy. How bad was the tizzy? I tried to commit suicide. Obviously, it didn't work because I, of course, did not want to die. I wanted help.
Yes.
My parents found me unconscious in the den and put me to bed, and it was never discussed. Because if we had to discuss my problem, then we have to discuss their problems. So whitewash.
Right.
Yeah. But I knew I needed help. I went to my school counselor as opposed to my school nurse, who also helped me. And I told her my story, and she kind of smiled. I didn't mention any names, just I was in love with someone and I got ghosted and I didn't know what to do. And she said to me, don't talk to this person. If they talk to you, talk back. Don't go near them. Don't try to stay away. Try to make new friends. Try to make better bridges with your old friends. This person will eventually come back to you, which is what I did. Now, what I didn't know is that Joel had gone to the same counselor and told his side of the story,
Interesting.
not mentioning gender.
Yeah.
And her advice to him was the kind of love that you are describing, if you're lucky, happens once in a lifetime. Don't be a fool and let this go. You will regret it the rest of your life. So we were at a party. Both of us got invited to like 50 kids. And as often as in the suburbs, you know, downstairs, finished basement kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was sitting on the steps talking to somebody. And I get this tap, 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 tap on my shoulder. And I look up. It was he. He said, Jeff, can I talk to you for a minute? Sure. So we went upstairs, went out the front door. And it was November on the East Coast. It wasn't cold, but it was, you know, a little. I said, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, Jeff, this is not talking to you. It's killing me. I said, I know how to fix that. He said, you do? I said, yes. Talk to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I looked him in the eye. Now, I'm 14 years old. I looked him in the eye and said, I will never not need you. I will never not love you. Period.
A 14-year-old kid saying that.
And he took my hand and we disappeared for about an hour. They went back to the party.
Sure.
I've never known a love like I had with him. We were truly, 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 truly soulmates. And what's even more interesting, the kids look more like me than they look like him, and the grandchildren look just like me.
That's
I honestly
remarkable.
believe our souls took DNA from each of us and gave it to the other.
Yeah, that's deep, and that's true love. That is true love. I'm a widower. The woman that gave me my children, she just dropped dead of a heart attack at the age of 37.
I'm so sorry, Hal. I understand the pain.
Yeah, it was. I think of her every day of my life. I always and forever will. And our relationship was so beautiful. We never argued. We never ever had conflict in the relationship.
Yes.
Ever. That's
Joel and I had 2 arguments in our entire lives. The one I just told you about.
Yes.
And much, much later, we argued about the children once.
Yeah.
And I had to kick his ass because he wasn't doing the right thing by them. But we never argued. There was no reason to. We communicated so well.
Well, you know, it's a true saying that you only find true love once, because you can fall in love with other people again, Jeff, but it's never the same as the one that brought you into that moment of life where you
No.
understood the true value of a love so deep and so pure and so beautiful. And when that love is gone, we seek it out again, but you know deep down in the recesses of your mind that you're never going to be able to fulfill it. So what I do is I cherish the memories. I look back and reflect on my time with Jerry Ellen and how beautiful and how wonderful she was, and how wonderful it was, and how wonderful we were as a couple together. She was a survivor of child molestation many years. She had been through the journey, and she was just absolutely strengthened and fortified as a result of what she had survived, and was a very good mother, a very good companion. She didn't sit there and use that as a crutch for failure. She used it as a building blocks for strength. And that's exactly and that's what you just did today on this show. And as we're getting ready to wrap this up, Jeff,
Yes.
I'd like you to remind my audience again the person that you want us to pray for today. It's an unspoken prayer request. So
my stepdaughter Julia,
okay,
who is and for the grandchildren who are affected by what's going on in her life right now. Look, I'm at an age where she's not like 20 years old. My stepdaughter is 43.
yes,
But she needs your help, and the kids need your help. And your help is positive vibes that the situation will resolve itself to the good health of my kids.
Well, he is Jehovah Rapha, the Lord God of all healing, but he is also the Jehovah Shalom, the Lord God maker of our peace. So your prayer request is received, it's lifted up, and we will definitely be putting her into our heart and our thoughts today. And thank you for sharing that. As we close out today, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you, Jeff, and I commend you on your courage and your journey, and I know that your conversations today will touch somebody in my audience, and I'm so grateful for that. And
if that happens, I am grateful as well.
I'm so glad that we're becoming friends and that we met on the former show. I was looking forward to doing this interview today.
Me too.
So, any final words to the audience, brother?
There is help to be gotten. You are not a victim. Don't stay in victimhood. There are problems. There is pain. Acknowledge the problems, acknowledge the pain, but don't live in the problem, live in the solution.
Amen.
If you do that, life will be even more than you could have hoped for.
Thank you, Jeff. Nothing but love and respect for you, brother. Good to see you again.
Back at you, Hal.
Okay, folks. Well, that wraps up another episode today. And I'd like to take this moment to thank each and every one of you for taking your time to catch our show. Now, if you like these shows, I would ask that you would please hit like, share, and subscribe. It's so important to us that we get these messages out, and we understand that these are graphic, almost toxic interviews. But, this is the kind of impact that we feel is needed in order to make sure that people understand the significance of the problems that we are confronted within our own country and around the globe. So I'm going to say at this time that I love you all. God bless you all. Hasta luego, y vaya con Dios, and go Victor.